According to a well known Stanford study on expressive writing, rooted in the research of psychologist James Pennebaker, who actually coined the term expressive writing, writing down your thoughts and emotions can reduce stress, boost immunity, and improve mental clarity. People who practiced expressive writing just 15-20 minutes every day for a few days experienced measurable drops in anxiety. They also observed lower levels of cortisol and better emotional regulation. And well, friends, here is my favorite part. When you write, not type, write is write. What happens is something sacred happens in the brain. The prefrontal cortex, now prefrontal cortex is that rational decision making part of your brain. It starts communicating with the amygdala. What is amygdala? Amygdala is your emotional alarm system. So both of them start communicating with each other. And this communication literally helps your brain calm emotional storms, process feelings, and reduce reactivity. It is like your thoughts finally get a place to sit down, to breathe, and to be understood. That is like the sacred connection between ink and paper. And typing is fast, but writing is felt. It is felt deep within. But why are we talking about all of this? What does all of these studies have to talk about? The answer is very simple. Today we are going to learn about this beautiful technique called journaling, which I discovered when I was at my lowest. It totally changed my life, and it is one of the most easy, the least expensive, yet the most effective way to manage your mental health, and not just that, to create a better future. So, welcome everyone to yet another powerful episode of the Unicorns podcast with me, Dr. Ashwini Chube. And today we are going to work with a life changing method. And that is why this episode is titled as The Life Changing Magic of Journaling. Today we are going to dive into something very simple, very ancient, yet something which is scientifically proven and absolutely life changing. Yes, we are going to talk about journaling today. So I'm going to ask you a few questions. Are you someone who is stressed and overwhelmed, stuck, feeling uninspired, or just feeling lost in life? And if you are someone like that, I would say keep listening. Because what I'm about to share today might be a very simple thing, but it will help you rewire your brain. It will help you heal your emotions, and it will transform your life in a very gentle yet a very powerful way. And I've tried this myself. You probably must have heard things like, journaling is good for you, writing is therapeutic. But how good? Well, as I always say that now science is proving that journaling is beautiful. Journaling is powerful. Journaling is impactful. But journaling has been there since before even science existed. When we were younger, I know a lot of our uncles and aunts would write a diary. I've heard this from many people. They say that I write a diary. And basically, what you're doing is you're expressing what you're feeling on a piece of paper. And it just heals you, it just heals the way you start thinking about life. And when you just put it out, something changes deep within. But long ago, before I actually saw that there was a method called journaling, or long before I knew about expressive writing, or long before even any of the scientists started, proving about it, I know people have been doing it. But I will also share my personal story because everything which I share, whether on my podcast, in my workshops, or in my one on one coaching sessions, is everything I have experienced, everything I have experimented on myself. And only the things which have worked for me is what I share with everyone in all of my communications, whether it is workshops, whether it is sessions, whether it is any of the talks or whether it is podcast like this. So I'm going to share my personal journey with journaling and how did it change my life. So let me take you back to a few years ago in the year 2017-18. It was one of the darkest phases of my life. At one point of time, it was happening that I had started my journey as a life coach, as a spiritual teacher. I had quit my job and I was transitioning into a full time career in the life coaching and healing and spiritual teaching industry. There were a lot of other things going on in my life. So, in all areas of life, there was a lot of uncertainty. I was emotionally drained, I was mentally overwhelmed, and although I was practicing modalities and I was working on myself, somewhere I realized that there was a gap between what I was learning and what I was experiencing. I was learning very well. I was taking sessions with my clients. I was teaching not as much as what I'm doing now. But at that point of time, I had started this journey. And from an initial period of where I was doing well, there came almost like a full stop where work was not coming towards me. I saw that a lot of my clientele had become stagnant. So work was stuck at some level. In my personal life, I was going through something really difficult. Things were not the best. And whereas I kept on going in my life, there was one point in time wherein I realized that things are going really downhill. And one point of time, I just broke down. At that point of time, I had my teachers, I had my mentors, I was talking to them, I was connecting to them. When I would talk to them, when I would connect to them, I would feel good. But after coming back home from all the amazing workshops which I was learning, I would feel that things are not working well. And I was going through this cycle of feeling good and feeling bad, feeling good and feeling bad. And I was really not understanding what to do. And one fine day, I woke up feeling lowest, feeling horrible, literally trembling with anxiety. And without reading a book, listening to a podcast, or watching a video, I just picked up a notebook which was next to my bed and I started writing everything I felt. I started writing everything I feared, everything I wanted to maybe scream, but I couldn't say out loud. I did not know what journaling was at that time. I coined this term journaling very much later when I read about it, but that time I was just writing. And the first day I just vented out what I was writing. And after that, when I started writing, the pen started moving automatically with my hand. It was magical. It was a little weird, but I just allowed the pen to move. After the third day, I started dividing my writing into different sections. In one section, I wrote about all the frustrations. In one section, I wrote about gratitude. I wrote little things like I'm grateful for my parents. I'm grateful for the food I eat. I'm grateful that my mother made such a beautiful breakfast and I enjoyed it. I I wrote I'm grateful for a client who comes in and who is actually helping me build up my business. And I even wrote basic things like I have fresh water to drink and I have a place to live. I wrote right from that. I started with gratitude journaling. I also started doing something called as doodling and I started using colors and crayons. And do you know what happened within 10 days? My mind felt lighter. My heart felt clearer. I felt like I had a space to breathe again. Very recently, just a week ago, while clearing my closet, I found that notebook of 2018 where I had written all my gratitudes, where I had created some beautiful art because I was going through the darkest of times. I wonder what was going through my mind, but I did really create some beautiful art. I drew random things and it looked beautiful. And that is when I realized that sometimes universe handles you a paper and pen before the universe handles you a solution. And at that point of time, without spending a single penny from my pocket, within 10 days, I completely came out of that darkness. A lot of darkness which happens is not external. A lot of darkness happens inside our mind. So, on the face of it, many of us, when we see our each other's lives, we feel, oh, why did she go through such a difficult time? Everything was well. She she had everything which she wanted at that point of time. But what makes her feel what actually happened? I know a lot of you must be wondering, Ashwini, what actually happened? Why did you go through the darkest times? A lot of battles happen inside our mind. We overthink, we think negative, we go to extreme negative thinking. We think of catastrophic scenarios which never happen, but we think of them. And sometimes going through that is one of the most difficult times. But in those 10 days, what became what I call a movement, not just for me, but also later for a lot of my students, because then I, of course, launched the journaling workshop. I launched journaling for anxiety as a workshop because I really felt this was magical. A lot of my students started seeing shifts too. And, of course, I launched the workshop another 6, 8 months down, or maybe a year down the line. But at that point of time, it was completely out of nowhere. In 2019, I was also invited by a corporate to teach their staff, their employees, all about journaling for anxiety. And at that point of time, I also added journaling for anxiety and more efficiency and effectiveness, because with corporates and the kind of tight deadlines and stress which people go in, this was very much necessary. So in 2019, I was standing in a corporate and giving lectures to a group of people about journaling and how journaling helps, and they all loved it. But can you imagine something which was born out of such darkness, which became so effective? And today, when I look back, I realize that, oh my God, actually, I was working with my brain and, my emotions. Beautiful, isn't it? In the last 5 years, so today, this all happened in 2018. In 2019, I announced that workshop. After that, we had the pandemic lockdown, where we did a couple of workshops on journaling for anxiety, and online workshops too. Now, when I look at myself in 2025, I realize that there is so much right now. There are so many people who are talking about journaling, and journaling seems to have just exploded. But what is journaling like? And you would say that I don't know how to begin with journaling, Ashwini. How can I journal? What can I do to journal? And all I can say is journaling is therapeutic. Journaling is, it works with all your senses. And the beauty of journaling is it works with the paper and pen. So if you are a newcomer, and I would also say that there are so many people who watch my podcasts and who connect to me, absolute strangers connect to me, and they say that how much information they give you. I would say that if you are someone who are going through a really difficult time and you do not know what to do, you don't know what's the next step to take, you're not even ready to start working on yourself. I know there are so many people who say that I don't have funds for coaching, or I don't have funds to do workshop. I would say the easiest and the best way to start is grab a paper pen and begin your journey in journaling. Now you'll ask me, how do I begin my journey in journaling? And here are some of the tips I would give you. For all of you who are wondering how to begin, I'm going to show you a step-by-step approach of journaling. What are the different types of journaling? What are different sections of journaling? And how can journaling help you? So are you ready to start? If you're ready to start, I would say take this moment, grab your paper pen and start. Make it as creative as possible. Make it as beautiful as possible and just start it. So the first one is the most important one, and I used to call it vent it out theory, or some people also call it the brain dump or the release dump therapy. There are different names for it. So what I used to do is I used to keep some loose papers with me where I would write everything I wanted to vent out. I used to vent out about random things. Maybe I did not receive payment from someone. Initially, in my initial days of work, I remember I used to give sessions to people, and I would have some clients who would just not pay and just ghost me after that. I did not have a team or I did not have any system. And I used to feel, oh my God, why is this happening to me? I'm working so hard and there are people who are not paying me. That's really ridiculous. But I did not know what to do. I used to feel so helpless and stuck. I would write it down. I remember it would be so difficult to see a loved one suffer. For example, if my father was sick and we were trying to help him with whatever medications, the best doctors, and maybe his health was not getting better, that would really frustrate me, and I would hate to see him suffer. And at that point of time, I would feel really frustrated. Certain times it would happen that in your personal life too, you go through so much difficulty in the relationships, and for some reasons you just feel stuck. I used to write all of that. I used to write everything which used to make me feel stuck. If I would have a difficult conversation with someone and probably things would go down south and things would get even worse, I would write about it. So every negative emotion, all the fears, I used to wake up at midnight initially trembling with fear. I started writing that down. That, when I wake up at midnight, this is what I feel. I started writing all of that on loose papers. And as I started writing them on loose papers, day after day, week after week, it just helped me release something which was going on within me. And what could be better than just tearing those papers off and putting it in a cauldron or just burning it away? So I would write and vent all of that, and I also had a lot of so-called people or friends who would speak very negatively with me, who would criticize me, who would not support me, and I would get frustrated. And I started writing all about that, and I started writing that it's so irritating, it's so frustrating that these things are happening. I feel so stuck. I feel so helpless. I don't know what to do. And at this point of time, when I started writing, after the fourth or fifth day, I started feeling lighter. And then I started tearing those papers off, throwing it in a bin, or even best burning it. So the first part is what I call as vent it out. Take some loose sheets of paper, write down your all that is disturbing you, tear it off, throw it away, burn it off. The more you do it, the more easier you will feel about everything in your life. So the first section of journaling is the release dump therapy, which is where you write, tear, and burn it off. The second one. So in addition to writing this on loose paper, the vent it out theory, I would also write little things I'm grateful for. Like I mentioned, I would even be grateful for the coffee which my mother makes. Oh, she used to make such amazing coffee. I think all her friends used to come from wherever and they would say, I just want to have that coffee made by you. So I used to just love that coffee which my mother used to make, and I used to write about that. I would write about the real friends I had who are always supportive and loving. I would write about my family. I would write about my house. I would write about basic things because apart from the basic things that time, I did not really have much to be grateful for. This is for anyone and everyone who feels that, I don't have anything to be grateful for. I have clients who come and sit in my office and they tell me, Ashwini, I don't think if I have anything to be grateful for. And I tell them, you just could come here. How did you come here? And they say, I just booked a cab and came here. I live in some other area in Mumbai. And I said, you're living here. You have a house. You have the money to travel by a cab and come. She said, yeah, actually, my husband gave me the money to travel by. I was like, write down. I'm grateful for my husband. I'm grateful for my family. Write about it. Then they said, Ashwini, I don't know anything. I don't have a career. I did not complete my education because I got married very early. I said, okay, but you did not complete your education. That's okay. But you can read and write about that. Now, very recently, I heard this term called toxic positivity, which a lot of people argue that when you tell people to be grateful, even when they are going through difficult times, is toxic positivity. Well, I have a different opinion on that. It becomes toxic positivity only when you are telling the person that they are not suffering. So when clients come and sit with me, I tell them that, I very much understand how difficult it must be because I have gone through this. But at this point of time, I also want you to acknowledge the fact that yes, right now life is difficult, but I have a few things to be grateful for. And when you shift that attention to what you are grateful for, it changes everything about you. Otherwise, it is very easy to slip into victim consciousness and to never get out of it. And when I talk to clients, they say that within 5 to 6 days of gratitude journaling, they start seeing the difference in your life. Now, what is happening when you are writing gratitude? It shifts your brain from a survival mode to abundance mode. What is survival mode? You are just looking at basics. Like I said, the client, she said that she was going through something difficult. She was laid off from a job. She did not have the basic resources. But the fact was that she could come and sit with me and visit me. And she said, Ashwini, I took money from my husband to travel by cab and to pay your fees. And I said, aren't you grateful for that? And from there, the way her life changed, the way from there to attracting her dream job, to having a work life balance, and to changing everything about her life, I saw a big change in her life. Right? But what was it? What was the start? She started writing gratitude. And in my case, too, I started writing gratitude for the basic things. After one fine day, I realized the gratitude from basic things blew up to gratitude for bigger things. Now all of a sudden I was getting my manifestations. I was getting, like I said, I got an offer to talk in corporate office, and they paid me for that talk. And they said that we loved your work, Shwini, we would love to see more of your workshops and all of that. So when I started with little things, like, some of you may be thinking that, oh my god, what is this? It is so silly to write about homemade breakfast and homemade coffee and getting water for shower and basic things. But at that point of time, when you're going through a very difficult time, those things are also luxury. So be grateful for your family, for the people who are supportive. Sometimes we are we take the things for granted, but the truth is we have that support. And isn't that beautiful? From little things, it went on to become bigger things. And when I talk about bigger things to be grateful for, they are the visible manifestations, because we can have gratitude for both the visible and invisible. For example, if I say I'm grateful for the diamond ring, I'm grateful for my iPhone, I'm grateful for my house, I'm grateful for my car, I'm grateful for the travel, these are the visible things. But how about I'm grateful for beautiful, sleep, which I get, uninterrupted sleep. I'm grateful that I'm able to, eat the good foods and digest it. These are things we take for granted, right? So there are a lot of invisible things like peace of mind, feeling joy, feeling happiness. Because I meet a lot of clients who say that I have lost feeling happy. I don't know how to feel happy. I lost that connection. And when you restore that connection to joy, isn't that beautiful? So, in gratitude, start writing from the smallest things. I will tell you, within 2, 3 months, you will see that right from writing for the smallest things, the most silly things, you will start writing gratitude for the big things. The next one. The next one is my favorite. It is something called as victory log. I often talk about victory log in my workshops. What is victory log? Every win, no matter how small, how big, write it. Your brain needs evidence that you are growing. So in victory log, you write about little things. For example, every month I write victory log about how amazing the workshops were and how my people chose my workshops. Or if if there is something going on in the teaching space, I launch a new course, I write about that. Victory log could also be, I also call it something like a reverse bucket list, where you just tick mark all the things which you once wanted to do and which you actually accomplished. For example, traveling to Paris was always a big dream for me, and when I went to Paris last year, I feel like, wow, it really happened. From being on my vision board for many years, it did happen. So whether it is travel, whether it is, able to maybe do some kind of sport activity, or maybe it could be as simple as, oh, I was able to make this, amazing dish, in my spare time. And whenever I am tired, I like to cook. I like to make something very innovative, something very different, maybe a one pot meal. So when I make something and maybe for the first few attempts I fail at it, and then there comes an attempt where it goes well, I write about it in my victory log. Today I really made this amazing dum aloo and it was so good. I write it in my victory log because for the first 5 times I failed at making dum aloo. Today it turned out to be amazing. Isn't that amazing? So I tell my students to write at least 5 things they win about every night. If you can't write 5 things, write at least one thing. Over the month, you write 30 things. So that is the section called as the victory log. Victory log is a very powerful way to build in your confidence and to go from a victim mindset to a victor mindset. Next, vision journaling. This is your desire list. At the start of every year, we have vision board workshops, and all my students have seen a massive change in the way they're living their life. From living in survival, they start moving into goals. And like I said, there are invisible and visible goals. Invisible goals are the ones which you cannot see, like peace of mind, feeling happy, feeling content, having that beautiful connection and good time with family. And then there are the visible goals, which are the achievements, the material things which you see. Getting your dream job, getting your dream house, getting your dream car, whatever it is. So, all of these things form your visions. And in vision journaling, here is where you write about your dreams, goals, manifestations. I personally like to add affirmations too, because it programs your subconscious mind to expect good things. And you know, when you expect the good things, they come to you naturally. The next section. This is often not discussed by many people, but because my work combines the mental, emotional, physical, along with the spiritual, this is a very important section for me. And this is what I called as prayer journaling. In all faiths, in all religions, in all spiritual societies, prayer is given a lot of importance. I always say that your prayer is very unique to you. Prayer works on the principle of subconscious mind. Dr. Joseph Murphy has written in his book, the beautiful book, The Power of Subconscious Mind, how prayer works. If you are more interested in knowing the science of prayer, please go ahead and read that book. But prayer, according to me, is where you surrender to God and where you tell God that, I just put this in front of you. Please help me deal with this. I can't do this alone. That is how the beauty of prayer is. And most of the times, all of the times, prayers get answered. Prayer is your quiet conversation with God. So, in this section, you can write your hopes, your questions, your dreams. I always ask questions to God. And it's very beautiful that within a few days, someone sent something to me on social media, or I see a post on Facebook, or someone I know talks about something and things work out. Once I had asked a question, and the particular question was connected to some emotional thought what I was going on. And I had written a specific prayer to Mahadev, Lord Shiva, who is my Ishtadev, and I wrote that to him in my prayer section. And within a few days, someone sent me a post which was exactly an answer to that prayer. This is how magical it works. So it just helped me guide and show me the way, right? So prayer can be written in any format. There is no format to say that. I also know sometimes I just write some magical, powerful chant or some shloka on my prayer list because that is my way of connecting to God. So you could write anything, right from a sacred verse or a shloka or whatever you connect to personally. I also connect a lot to archangels. So there are times I write to archangels in a prayer asking them to help me, and beautifully it always helps. It always works. So it's beautiful how the prayer connects us to God, and trust me, all your prayers get answered. Some prayers get answered immediately. Some prayers get answered, after some time or after a long time. And sometimes God says no because you are going to get something better. So the only thing here is to trust God and to build that deep sacred connection to God. And I also say that apart from writing prayers, you can also, spend some time maybe creating a small altar, sitting in your own house and sitting and doing some kind of prayer, some kind of chanting. That helps a lot. Okay, so these were the main sections of my journal, but I also added some beautiful little nuggets to it. And for the first few days, I was only writing and venting. And as slowly I started getting feeling better, I started adding some bonus things like colors, doodles. I started decorating pages. I started using crayons. I had some crayons left in my drawer. I just took them and I started creating very different, weird, magical paintings and magical, colorful things. One of the things I remember is I am not very good at drawing and sketching and art. So I used to always wonder that I shouldn't do it because I can't. But during my doodling time and during my journaling time, I realized that when you sketch or draw, it is not for others to see, it is for you to express. And that is because creativity actually heals parts of you that words alone cannot reach. This helped me tremendously during times of emotional and mental struggle. So I added things like, colors and doodles and even stickers sometimes. Sometimes I would add things like song of the day. I remember when I was working in corporate, me and a few friends, we used to decide song of the day, the song which we would listen to on loop all the time. And it was a fun thing. So at that point too, I would, think of a song of the day and I would just put it that this is the song of the day, maybe write a few lyrics about it. Then I would also write about something called as the bore daily stuff, like running random errands, like, maybe buying vegetables or, some things like looking at a bank account if the money has come, anything, it could be just anything. And then I also started writing about what time I woke up and what time I slept if I journal at night. Now, these tiny things brought some structure in my day. And I remember on around 25th, 26th March 2018, I went through this really deep, stuck period. By the time I was in 15th, 16th April, I had started getting normal. By May, I felt even better. By June, I was thriving. And around July, I started, getting back to my work in a proper way, which means I started teaching even journaling to others. And the kind of results my students got was commendable. So, why did I do an entire podcast on this? The reason I did an entire podcast on this is journaling is not about writing beautifully, it is about writing honestly. It is not about being just consistent, or it is not about being perfect, or it is not about being, you know, the most artistic, the most beautiful handwriting. No, it is about being connected to your own self. If any one of you is feeling very stuck here, and if you've been waiting for a sign, if you've been thinking, I don't know what to do, I would say pick up a pen, pick up a paper, and start journaling. Write something, anything. All the tips I gave you, you can always make something out of it. So if you start journaling, and if you're going to start journaling, leave me a comment. If you have ever done any journaling in the past, write your comments below. And if this video has found you when you are going through your darkest times, and if you start journaling and your life changes, which it will, I want you to hear from you how this helped you. Start it today. They always say that when you start something to change your life, you start with little things. But as days become weeks, weeks become months, and months become years, and years even become decades, you look back and see how far you have come. I hope this episode of the Unicorns podcast helps you find yourself, align to your truth, and live life full of ease, joy, and glory. I'm here sending lots of love. My name is Dr. Ashwini Chube. Thank you for listening to yet another episode of the Unicorns podcast. And if you like my work, log on to www.unicorninsight.com, where I take my workshops and one on one sessions. And I would love to see you sometime in person. Sending you lots of love and light. Bye.